Gay is a radio where you are family. I am Rian and I am talking to Ditshego about her journey as a trans person. Ditshego, how did your trans journey start?
Um, Very interesting, actually. So last year I had the opportunity to go to America to complete my master's degree. And while I was there, everybody sort of assumed that I was transgender, you know. That's if they didn't assume that I was female, which is how I present. And I always take that as a compliment when people think that, because that is the image I'm portraying. But for the longest time, those who didn't think I was female thought, okay, well, you might have not been born female, but you definitely, there's a female aura about you. So people thought I was transitioning already, and that made me sort of question myself a lot. The other thing that came up from my travels was that, you know how they say, character is what you do. If you don't know, one would ever find out. And that's exactly what I did in America. I lived as a woman. I ate and breathed and acted and behaved as a woman. I wore dresses and high heels every single day. And that's because also I was far away from all the things that were hindering me back home, such as parents and societal pressure and expectations from family and tradition and culture and all these other things, all these badges and hats that I wear when I'm in the country, in my home country, they didn't apply when I was in America, and therefore I was able to live my truth. And that truth was me living as a transgender woman, or as a woman, as I sometimes would omit the trans part. But when I do my activism, I do like to make it known, and I'm not offended by the term at all. So that's how my journey began, well, or rather my self discovery and also my acceptance, because it wasn't also easy. And I mean, I had met many trans women, and I have some trans friends myself, but I never identified with them. I always used to say I respect them because of the mockery they go through every day, and just the hate from everyone, including those in the LGBT community. But I never identified as that. So I was also identifying first and then accepting it, because I thought it was enough for me to just identify as gay, really gay. But
And there is a difference between being gay and being trans.
absolutely, absolutely, because a gay man is a man who loves other men and still sees and knows himself as a man. I, on the other hand, was, and this is also something I've been reiterating recently. I wasn't born male. I was assigned male at birth. There's a difference. I was assigned male. So because I live in a society where when you're born, they look at what is between your legs, and that determines the rest of your life. It'll determine what high schools you go to, what universities, what car you'll drive, what clothes you'll wear, where you vacate. That one little piece of anatomy determines your, and that is the mistake that I feel we need to address. And it's going to take years to undo that. But I was not born male. I was just assigned male at birth based on my anatomy. And that's fine. That's how society works. But yeah, that's just who I am right now.
At what point in your life did you realize that you were different?
Well, I've always identified as gay, you know, even before I realized there was a transgender woman. So I've always known that I was different from day one. I've never been in a closet. I'm always fascinated by people's coming out stories, but I've always been a very overtly feminine young man. There's a picture of me, a 3-year-old, when I was 3 years old, and I had nail polish, and I was flicking my, or I was looking as though I was flicking my hair, and I had no hair to flick, but it was just my thing. There's a picture of mine in primary school also where it was one of those class pictures, and I posed in an inappropriate manner, but the photographer never corrected me, so I still run into classmates who say, "You ruined our grade 4 picture," you know. So so I've always known I was different, and I've been fortunate also. That I lived in I was raised in a house where I knew I was different, but I wasn't less than, because that's another thing that a lot of gay people grow up with. You know that you're different and you're less than everybody else. And I never really had that battle until I got into the real world, where I started experiencing homophobia, and the world was trying to remind me or instill in me that I was less than that. But I never got that from home, but I've always known.
During the period that you realized, okay, I'm not gay, I'm trans, What did you go through on an emotional and psychological level?
So much doubt, so much self-questioning, so much research also, because I'm such an academic. So um much like you, I investigate. I went and I asked people like yourself, because you have a psychology background, and I asked, people in my sphere, my colleagues and those around me who have greater knowledge on these subjects. I watched YouTube videos and I spoke to other trans women, and I just kept seeing more and more similarities between myself and the trans community than I did with the gay community. But it was hard. Listen, I won't lie. It was hard, and also because, and this is gonna sound so wrong, but also I felt like, don't identify as trans, because being trans is difficult. Being gay is difficult, but it's not as difficult. And also, gays are a lot more accepted in society. There's a lot more gay representation, from cabinet to television. I mean, every soapy now has a gay storyline. The trans community isn't even close to the progress that the gay rights movement have made. So there was also a very selfish sort of part of me that said, why would you want to identify with a losing team? Because you are on the right track. Stay gay. Don't change, because the gays are doing something right. But I thought, the gays were also at a point where they had to start fighting for their own rights. And that's why they are where they are today. And there's still a long road for the gays, but they have made progress. And I thought, if I don't take the baton as a transgender woman and start fighting the fight that the gays fought, then the transgender community will always be where it is now. One of the activists I respect said transgender rights are today where gay rights were 16 years ago. So it's a long road that we have to fight. So there was a lot of self-doubt when I discovered, there was a lot of questioning myself, making sure that is this what I really want? Am I sure? Watching the surgery itself, the processes, and seeing how painful and arduous it was, but that didn't even deter me, and that sort of confirmed to me that this is what you are and this is what you have to do. Not even this is what I want to do. This is what I have to do. And keep in mind that there are transgender women and men who don't feel the need to transition physically and have the reassignment surgery, and that doesn't make them any less transgender. But for me personally, my journey, this is something I have to do. I need my body to correspond with my mental and physical and spiritual being, and that's why I'm having the reassignment. But it was hard, and it still has its hard moments, but it's worth it.
What were the most difficult things that you had to deal with on your journey so far?
Number one, telling people. That was really hard.
Really,
That was
why?
really hard, because and funny enough, I actually had a problem telling my gay friends, because there's so much homophobia, internalized homophobia and transphobia within the LGBT community, and especially in the black community. There's, like I said, the gays have really made a lot of progress. A lot of black people now accept gay and lesbian women, but they still don't understand the transgender concept. And in fact, you hear us a lot where people will say something like, I understand gay men. I have no problem with gay men. It's these ones that want to be women that I don't get. You hear that a lot. I can say that in every language because I've heard it almost in every vernacular language in our country. So for me, telling people that I am this thing that you despise and you don't understand and you're not even interested in understanding, because that's also a problem. People are just like, I'm fine. I don't want to know. So telling people, and the thing is also, I didn't realize how hard telling people would be until I started telling them. And then I would find myself also like getting very emotional, and also their reactions. And I've had some pretty positive reactions, but speaking to a lot of transgender people, I've been told to expect some rejection as well. So mentally, I'm preparing for it. I haven't experienced it as much, but I anticipate it, especially once I go full in on the hormones and my transition becomes visible. Like, it's not even something I have to tell you. You'll start noticing it, like, why are you growing boobs and you're gaining a bit of weight in certain places? Why is this happening? That they say I must mentally start preparing myself for that. Because some people don't just ask, they ask in attack. It's not just I'm asking because I want to know. They're asking because it's like, what's wrong with you? So the most difficult thing so far has been telling people. The second difficulty I've experienced in my transitioning is just to get an appointment with a psychologist. Yo, these
Difficult.
it's difficult. These people are busy. Their lives are always busy. And I think, this is quite sad, one of the reasons is also because this is not a priority. I found out that the hospital that I'm trying to use, Steve Biko Hospital here in Pretoria, last year between October and January this year, they ran out of hormones. And they told the transgender people to either go through the private sector route where they pay for their hormones or come back when we have some more in stock.
Sure.
Yeah, you see, so there's so many, even in my research, there's so many things that I'm anticipating because I've heard that they've happened to other people, and I hope they don't happen to me, but it's very likely that it might, because one of the reasons why they ran out is because they don't consider this a necessary procedure. They say you won't die. It's not like chemo where they'll stop giving you chemo and your cancer will go back from remission. They say this is not something. So if they have to cut costs, reassignment surgery is almost one of the top three every time they go through a budget constraint. It's one of those where it's not really considered cosmetic, but they do cut it. It's one of the first to say, okay, let's stop funding these people for now. We'll call them again when the funding situation. So the other challenge has been getting a doctor, but I finally have secured a doctor, and I understand why he is so busy. He's brilliant, and he doesn't just deal with gender reassignment. He deals with everything mental, so everything you can think of, he deals with that. So yeah, that was one of the big those were two of my greatest challenges, actually, telling people and getting an appointment with a doctor.
How did these challenges help or hurt you?
They helped me because it's very disheartening. It's so easy to lose hope and to throw in the towel. And what they helped me in is that the way they helped me in sort of solidifying my resolve, because I am not backing down. And that sort of showed me how serious and confirmed again to me that this is what I need and want to do, because of how all these obstacles have been frustrating, yes, and I've said a few choice words every time I get blocked, but not even a day later, a few hours later, I'm doing my mantra. I'm reminding myself that this is who and what I am. I'm reminding myself of why it is important, and I'm on the phone again, making a call, trying to get another appointment, or if it's so the challenges have, if anything, they've helped remind me of how much I want and need this, because they haven't made me back down. Because because I'm always doing a self-introspection, and had I backed down, I would have had to say to myself, then you didn't want this that badly. Like, just admit it to yourself. I'd force myself to admit it and say, if you backed down because of ABC, then that really wasn't that important to you, now was it? And I haven't reached that point. So the challenges have been a reminder of how important and necessary this process is for me.
Your darkest hour so far?
Yo, oh my gosh. It's a very lonely life being a trans woman. And I'm such an affectionate person, and I'm such a lover. And I remember I had just spoken to a transgender woman. I think it was like my third or fourth transgender woman that I spoke to. And all of the women I had spoken to, it's a very gloomy story they have to tell. I'm almost hell-bent on changing the narrative. And I want to be that one healthy, happy, thriving, successful, employed transgender woman. So I reached a point when I had spoken to, I think it was the fourth transgender woman that I had spoken to on my own little personal research. And I just got home and I bawled, because these women, and I don't blame them for feeling that way. I'm not saying, they just have this negative aura, but they are just retelling their truth. And it's been such a sad story. And they all speak of how dating is a mission and how no man wants to be with them except for those that fetishize them. But those don't even want to date them. All they want to do is just sleep with them because they are this intriguing creature that they do not understand. So there's a whole lot of objectifying, which they feel they will not settle for, which is good for them. So they have found that the men they want don't want them. And because they don't want to settle, they've chosen to be alone. But also, they're not just alone and out of choice. They are alone and they're miserable and they are hurting. And one thing also that I've learned from the women that I've interviewed or just asked around is that a lot of them thought the surgery would be a destination.
But
And
it
I love
goes
the
beyond that.
and I love the name of your feature, transgender journeys, because what I've learned from them is that it's not a destination. It is a stop in the journey, but the journey continues. And also, to any transgender woman who'll be listening to this interview, I'd like them to know that the surgery isn't the answer to every problem you've ever had. It's those who believed that this surgery would be a miraculous cure that end up at the darkest, deepest. At some point, I even coined the phrase, I guess rock bottom even has a basement. There is something even lower than rock bottom because it is a lonely life. It is, well, that's the impression I got from the women I interviewed. And it's not just lonely, it's sad. And there are just so many, I also got this sort of aura of like self-pity, which, and I'm not judging, and I just hope and pray that I don't end up there as well. But I think already knowing that the surgery is not going to be the wand that's going to miraculously cure all my problems, I think I'm in a better position than they are, and I have no delusions about the surgery and what it will bring me and the changes it will bring me.
Don't you think that with this surgery, there's even more challenges presenting itself?
Exactly. It's almost you are doing this thing you want to validate yourself to yourself and maybe to other people. And then it becomes and it's almost like you need to answer even more questions now than before. One of them said, the best thing you can do after transitioning is move to a completely new place, because she found that there were so many challenges with her having changed, but living, because that's what she said, and I found that so powerful. She said, I changed, the world didn't.
And you still try and lead your old life.
So this is the difficult, that's where the difficulties arise, because now you expect the world to catch up with your change. And she said that's actually not even fair on the world, but also just not fair on yourself to expect that the world is just going to catch up to you when you are ready and you've had your surgery and you're ready to change your name and your gender marker and have a new driver's license and ID book and passport and all of the legalities out of the way. And now you're like, I'm done. I'm here. Hello. And then the world is still like, hey, John. And you're like, how many times must I tell you that I'm Janine? And sometimes it's done on purpose maliciously, and sometimes it really is an innocent mistake from someone who still hasn't adjusted to your change. So yes, the surgery doesn't bring about solutions. If anything, it brings about more problems. But if you know what you want and you know why you want this, that's why I think also maybe the psychology part of it is necessary. And something I'd like to happen is after you get diagnosed with gender dysphoria, to perhaps continue seeing your psychologist if he or she allows, during your transition, during the hormones, and if you're lucky enough, even post surgery, even if it's just for 6 months to a year, because you're going to need the psychological help and the adjustment, and the psychologists almost break down reality for you, reality that many of us maybe have not got a full grasp on, but we need to in order to survive and maneuver in a world that hates us and is comfortable with hating us and doesn't want to change, and in a world where even legislation defends hate, which most of us live in.
Have you had support in your journey? When you're talking about it's important to have that support structure, have you had support?
Yes, I have had support. Firstly, from the people here at work, who've been so great. I'm gonna get so emotional now. Um, so when I told the people at work, it was I didn't expect them to receive me the way they did, and it was and it was almost as if it was something they all knew all along, and they were just waiting for me to get onto that page, but they were far ahead on that book, And I'm very privileged to work with a lot older people who are very mature, so they have the right level of sensitivity when dealing with these matters, and also just from an employment perspective, there comes a time when your hormones just mess you up and you become sick and you react. And working for the organization that I work for has been so, it's their level of understanding and acceptance has, and the fact that they know, some of them even know more about this than me, and they already anticipate, and they've said, if you need time off, let us know. If you're not fine, let us know. And that has been everything. And I've gotten some rejection as well.
I was going to ask you.
From people who I didn't expect to reject me. Because they think being trans is a mental illness, and they think you're crazy, and they think you're delusional, and they think you're just an attention-seeking person who you're just fame hungry, or you're doing this because it's in fashion and everybody's trans now, and you're just looking for a piece of the limelight. And I've had some rejection, but there's support, and in fact, the rejection has made me appreciate the support even more. And and my sister, who's just been amazing. She's my everything. And she's even like getting her child to call me auntie and not uncle. And and even from my very religious mother, who still prays that this is a phase. But she still prays that I'm safe and I'm a happy, well-rounded individual. And she prays that that the decisions I make will only prosper me, and also that I will continue to be a contributing member of society and not just a stain on the mark of the world who will just go into obscurity and be forgotten years after she's passed on. So I've gotten some incredible support without which I don't think I would have the confidence and the resilience that I have today. Sometimes just getting out of bed is an accomplishment on its own, because it can be hard. It can be ugly. The world can be such an ugly place. People can be so ugly. And the support is necessary, even if it's from a family you create for yourself, which a lot of us end up being forced to, because the families we're born into reject us. They rebuke us. We are a stain, a mark of embarrassment and shame on the family, and we're a disgrace to the family name, and this is how they view us. So yes, definitely don't underestimate whatever support you can get, and once you do get it, hold on to it. And yeah, it's gonna be a long and bumpy ride, and that support is going to be your airbag and your seatbelt. So yeah.
You were mentioning work, and for me, it's been an amazing journey and a privilege, because I've been there with you for a while.
Yeah.
And the fudge that I met in the beginning, I never had doubts that you were a girl. For me, you were a girl. And it's like when you came out and you said, I'm going to start. And you said, I'm going to do my transition. I thought, okay, fuck, what took you so long? It's like, I think people know, and I knew, and for me, you were my sister. And for the fact that you came out and you said, I'm ready to do this now, I think was just remarkable. And it was like, what's she on about? It's just not an issue. I thought she knew. Am I right?
Yeah, you know what? And in fact, your reaction and just how casual you were about it was so natural. It was so authentic. It wasn't fake. It wasn't forced. You were just like, hello, welcome to the party. We've all been at this party. And that was so, I tell people about it all the time, actually, when I'm just having conversations about my journey and so far and obstacles, etc. I tell people when I told you in the studio and you said, if you need to talk at any time of the day or night, you have my number. I'm here at studio. I am available. I am your friend, and I have the professional backing as well. So from two different perspectives, but I am here, and I can't put it into words how important it is, and I count my privilege. I acknowledge that as my privilege. I feel like sometimes we forget how privileged we are, and then we just make statements thinking everybody else is in a privileged position like us. And there are so many people who don't have a Rian, who don't have a KSA radio. And I can only imagine the pain and the guilt and the self-loathing, Rian,
And
that they
it's so
must be feeling.
unnecessary.
And it's so unnecessary, you know? And I can say that because of my support structure. But, like I said, I don't want to assume authority over other people's circumstances who are so much different to mine. So I am so blessed, and I am so aware. I know that not everybody operates in an atmosphere that is so full of. I mean, look at us this morning when we went. I mean, it was just one long trip of laughter after another. It was, and it's so that's how we are. That's who and how we are. That's what we do all the time. We are so ourselves. It's disgusting. We don't even have a filter.
No, we don't.
We don't. We have verbal listeriosis, and we just say the first thing that comes to mind, and no one is offended by anything. It's beautiful, and I'm so aware of my privilege and my blessings, and I thank I thank God for them every day. I really do, and I want transgender men and women to have support and to know the importance of support and to know that it makes such a huge difference, guys. It really, really does. It makes it's the butter on the bread. It makes the bread so much more edible. It does.
So I think what makes you unique in this series is everybody that I've spoken to are like halfway or three quarters and nearly at the end of your journey. And you are taking those baby steps.
Yeah, I am in the beginning, very much in the beginning. I am seeing Dr. Krobler at the Steve Biko Hospital. For those of you who live in Pretoria, that is who I strongly recommend you make an appointment with. And like I said, he's a very busy man. But once it's the getting started also that I've found is the challenge. I've spoken to Glia, I've spoken to April, and they've all said to me, once you're in the system and you have a file and a file number and he has seen you 2 to 3 times, then the ball is rolling. Then it's one thing after another. It's like you spend all this time waiting and it's like just tedious. And then once the ball drops, then it's like da, 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 so I'm still very much in the beginning and I'm still during that teething stage. But yeah, I can't wait for the ball to drop. That sounds so wrong because also it sounds like I'm literally referring to a scrotum.
If we go back and you know what, and it's what as I said, what makes this very unique, this specific interview is from a personal level. I've been involved in some of the stuff, and that first decision that you took to decide you are going to have your gender reassigned, that was scary.
Very, very. It was literally like jumping off a cliff and not knowing if there is water or a net or a beach of rocks, but you are jumping and come what may. That was very scary.
You came and you told me, and I think I still harassed you with numbers.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Oh, I'm actually getting a flashback. You went online immediately, and you found out transgender sort of support groups in Pretoria, and who's in charge of the transgender division at Access Chapter 2, and there were just, and every day, did you speak to Veronica? And then here's Cleo, and literally there was a time when I could literally I would open my phone and I would see your face as a wallpaper saying, "Did you talk to Cleo? Did you talk to Cleo? Did you?" And then eventually when I spoke to her, I came to her and I said, I spoke to her, and then it became, "What did she say? What did she say?" I said, "No, she said she'll get back to me." What did she say? It was constant. It was funny, but it was necessary. Also, I think also, sometimes we hesitate, because we realize the magnitude of this thing, and you're like, I'm making this big decision. Am I ready? Am I making a mistake? So I mean, we sort of take one step forward and then 10 steps backwards. So you were literally like a door behind me, refusing for me to take any step backwards, and I'm so appreciative for that. I'm so grateful.
And on the journey now, where are you? Have you started your hormone replacement yet?
And I'm still busy with the diagnosis part of it. What I'm happy about is this doctor says, he's actually so good. It's not the same for everyone, because I asked him, apparently you need to see me 3 times, or do I need to see 3 different psychologists? And he said, no, if I meet you straight off the bat, I feel that this is what and who you are, I will diagnose you with that on the spot. It's different for every woman and every man. It isn't a uniform thing. There isn't a formula where I need to see you for 7 sessions. If I feel on our 3rd session that you don't have gender dysphoria, I will diagnose you and say, I'm not putting you on hormones, and you can go get a second opinion elsewhere. But he says it's a different process for everyone. So I'm still in that process, but we've met, and he didn't even know I was born male. I don't know if he had read what the appointment was for, because it says gender reassignment consultation, but he just sort of said, I'll see my next client now. So he went out, and I sat down, and he said, yes, ma'am. And I think maybe he thought I was there for some sort of counseling for some trauma I had experienced, but he thought, I am this woman who is here for a consultation. And I said, no, actually, I'm here for that. And he was just like, wow. And he says, he even thought I was on some sort of black market hormones, which are very available and very dangerous, and I strongly advise against. But I also do understand the need for one to live their truth, and I know why people go to such extremes. But he thought perhaps I was even on that, on some sort of black market hormones, because he was convinced by my appearance, my demeanor. And I have quite a deep voice, actually. I always think, whenever I walk into a room, I always think, okay, they all think this is a girl until I speak. Yeah. And then I'm going to open my mouth. But he's like, no, I just thought you
sound like a girl.
Yeah, because I think my voice is pretty deep. But he was just like, no, your voice didn't even give it away for me. So he... based on his reaction, I'm quite happy. I think we're going to make progress. I think I will not have to see him many times before he gives me the green light, and then I can start taking my hormones.
Plans for the future.
Plans for the future. Oh, beyond so many plans. I plan to go national in terms of my career, because that's also a problem that I've experienced in the transgender community. Unemployment is a huge problem, and I have my own organization for women in the rural areas that I plan to grow, and I hope it gets more funding and it becomes a big movement, and I can make the changes I want to make in people's lives. I want to get married. I want to have children. I'm not sure if I'll be a good parent, though. It's such a fear of mine to have children and to damage them, because I've seen the damage that parents can do to children, and I don't want to put any young, impressionable life in harm's way, and me being that harm. But I'd like to have a family. I'd like to get married. I'd like to make lots of money. I'd like to get my own talk show on a national television channel, and because I think I'm interesting and funny and smart, and I have so much information to share, and I think people will learn a lot from me. And more importantly, I want trans inclusion and trans representation. It's so important for a young child to see what and who they are in places of authority, because then it reminds them that they are valid, their dreams are valid, their goals are legitimate, and that there is absolutely nothing wrong with them. For young kids to see a transgender woman in parliament, or a transgender newsreader on a national news channel, or a transgender soccer player, for them to see us in high positions and doing well in those positions, not because we are in those positions out of pity, but also just rather because we are deserving and competent and able to perform the duties that are required of us. When we occupy those seats of power, and we are in the decision making circle in society, and young up and coming youth can see us occupying those seats, that is powerful. And I want to occupy those seats, and I want them to look at me, and I want them to say, if she can do it, what's stopping me?
Would you say is great about being transgendered?
Um, not much, except that we are real, we exist. It's not a choice. And the great thing about it, if you are it, is that perhaps, I don't want this is gonna sound so wrong, because so many transgender men and women have different opinions on this, you know. Some people say, oh, it must be really great to have experienced both sexes. You were born one sex, and then you have the opportunity to be another. And I wouldn't say it was great, because when you're in the one sex, the first sex, the wrong sex, for those of us who do choose to transition, because not everybody transitions physically. Some just feel that self-identifying is enough, and they are right to do so if that's how they feel. But for those of us who undergo the physical transformation and the reassignment, people like to say, it must be great for you to have experienced both sexes. And I suppose to a certain extent, I mean, it's a rare experience, as human beings, to have experienced both sexes, both genders, I suppose, physically. The thing I always try to explain, though, is even when I was the one gender, the one I was diagnosed or assigned at birth, I always felt and acted like the gender I always knew I was. So even as a man, I never fully owned it. I never fully enjoyed it. I never fully embraced it. What would be great is if I lived as a man and loved it, and then changed to become a woman and loved that. And I could speak on both sides of the coin, but I can't, because even as a man, even having a penis did not make me feel any more of a man. That's what a lot of people, I think, do not understand. However, I will have lived a life where I have experienced being physically male and female, and that's something noteworthy. That's not nothing, And I suppose, there are some fun things, I suppose, physically speaking, to having possessed a penis. One of the great, well, she used to be what I considered one of the great authors until she made some derogatory statements about transgender women, and now she's dead to me. A lady by the name of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who is a noted scholar and an author and a motivational speaker. But she said transgender women must not forget the advantages they enjoyed, the privileges they enjoyed when they were still men. And I thought, I don't know what she's talking about, because most of us were miserable when we lived as men, firstly. But the only advantage I can really think of is peeing standing, which is quite an advantage. It's the only thing I can think of as a benefit, especially in the winter. And I don't have, but I sit down anyway. But I sit down anyway, penis or not, But of course, I do have the option of peeing standing if it's an emergency and I really don't feel like taking off all my clothes and putting my big bum on a cold porcelain seat, So that's the only advantage that I enjoyed as a man and, as a physically male identifying individual. But yes, I think that's the only physical advantage that I enjoyed. And aside from that, really, there isn't any advantages to being trans. If anything, it's a disadvantage, because it's the only orientation, and I don't want to speak on behalf of intersex people, because that's something I have no knowledge and expertise over, and that's a completely different experience, and I don't want to trivialize it either. But it's the only, no, aside from intersexuality, it's the only orientation that can be physically operated upon. And some people would say that's an advantage, but some would say shame. And I mean, gay people just need to come out the closet and they don't need to change anything. They don't need to go under the knife. They don't need a diagnosis from any psychologist. So I wouldn't say it's an advantage because it's a lot of work. You know, it's so much admin being transgender and getting the whole complete package done. It's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work.
What are the best thing that happened to you so far?
I'm happier. I am more comfortable. To those who've accepted me, I explain less because I do things now with people knowing why I'm doing them. And there isn't a shock value to it. It's just her being her and she's fine, you know. So the advantage for me has definitely been living my truth. And I always say if I died tomorrow, I'd be happy knowing that I got to live, even if it's just these few months or years, as the person I fully identify as. Knowing and living your truth and being true to you is such a powerful thing to have and to own. And I own that now. I own my truth. No one can come and tell me otherwise. Though they can, but it doesn't demystify what I already know and believe about myself. And that has been the best thing. The feeling of knowing that I am living my truth and owning that truth and knowing that no one can take it from me.
What is better than you could wish for?
What is better?
Better. If you look back at your journey from when you started and before accepting yourself, and you look at now, what right now is better than you could wish for ever at that point?
Ooh, the sex. And I haven't even transitioned, but now that I identify as a woman, I feel that, you know, my partners, if that sounds wrong, it sounds like I'm a prostitute, but my partners
Do you have
treat me
multiple
different.
partners?
Well, it sounds plural, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, but my partner actually treats me, or the men I encounter treat me a lot more different, and they are so much more aware of me and my womanness, and the way they treat me, and the way they handle me, and there's an intimacy and a sort of gentleness that I didn't experience with gay men, who otherwise just saw me as another man, a feminine man, but a man nonetheless, you know. And what else is better? Oh, and the shopping is better too. The shopping is better. I'm overweight. The photos are going on the website for all our listeners. We're having a great photo shoot coming up soon, so they'll be able to put a face to the voice. But I'm quite a chunky girl. But I'm still very, like, I have very small hands and feet. So finding shoes has been such a pleasure. Shopping for high heels is absolutely such a pleasure. And the thing is, you know, I'd buy heels and then I'd like hide them previously, you know.
And now,
But
not
now that
anymore.
what? Never. I have heels strewn all over my car, in my boot, my bedroom, my car. Listen, my carpet in my bed. Everywhere you go, you run into a pair of shoes of mine, and the shopping experience of shopping and not hiding, you know, and not having to guess. I can freely try on a pair of shoes in the middle of the shop with a whole audience, and I couldn't be bothered because that's the power that comes with it. And I mean, I know people might stare and gawk and judge and snicker and sneer, but I don't care. You know, I do it freely and openly because I'm living my truth. And that means no more hiding. And it's so freeing. Like, hiding is so exhausting. It's so emotionally and physically exhausting, and the constant lies and having to keep track of your lies. It's just a lot. Now I don't have to do that, and so definitely the shopping experience has gotten better as well. And it's so also, you know, the energies that we emit, you know, because I feel like now that I identify as trans, no one even sort of questions me when I get to a shop and I say, do you have this shoe in a size 6? And they just say, yes, ma'am, or let me go check for you at the back, you know, and they are more willing to embrace you because they see or they sense that you are so comfortable in yourself that they are comfortable to be around you as well and service you in whatever capacity you may need. So I have found that in my owning it, it also makes those around me a lot more comfortable actually in addressing blessing me and helping me and just dealing with me in their life.
What has being trans taught you?
It has taught me that the world is an ugly place. It has taught me that the world can also be a beautiful place. It has taught me patience because it's a long process. It has taught me kindness because so many of my trans brothers and sisters have experienced everything but kindness, which has forced me to be kind, even to everyone. I think of their experiences, and before I do or say something mean, I filter myself because I remind myself that the world is so mean already. It doesn't need me to be mean as well. So it's taught me kindness. It's taught me generosity as well, and to be giving of my time, especially to members of the community and to causes within the community, to fight for causes and to remind people that trans lives matter. And it's also taught me to love myself. Actually, I I don't think I loved myself as much when I identified as gay, only because, like I said, when you're gay, and I mean, being gay is still difficult, but I got under the radar a lot easier than you do. There's a lot more scrutiny for the transgender women, and because I realized that transgender rights and the transgender movement is so far behind, I've had to fiercely love myself intentionally. I do it with intention and purpose because I am more aware that the world I live in will not freely give me the love I need and deserve, or doesn't even think I deserve it. Or maybe I don't. And because of that, I need to love myself. So it's taught me also that I think that's the most important thing. That my trans journey has taught me to love myself more fiercely and deeply and intentionally, and to be kind to others and to myself.
How have you grown?
Oh my word! I have the wisdom of a 60-year-old woman now. I've grown so much in the last, and I also just want to say I'm still growing, and I'm still going, and I'm still to learn so much, and I am willing to learn. I will not dare claim to know everything. I am, and when I get corrected, I may question it, but I question it so that I can know better, not to fight where the information is coming from. Because I do come across as very, sometimes, I think you've seen this in the meetings, a bit defiant. But it is, I question from a thirst to know perspective, not a because I already know better than you and you are wrong. So I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning, and I enjoy that I don't know everything actually, and I enjoy that I am going to come across people who've been on this rodeo, and they are still on the bull, and I look up to those people, and I look forward to climbing that bull and falling and getting back up on it again, and learning from those falls as well. But I have learned a lot. I keep saying there's a part of me that feels like I wish I knew this earlier in my life, but there's another part that says I had to know it now. Everything happens for a reason, and the timing is divine. And I may not know it now, but later on I will understand why it happened. It had to happen now, just after turning 30, and what because I feel like had I known this at 23, I'd be done with the process, and I'd be such a happy, thriving woman. And I feel like I would be so much further in my life. But also, I feel like it's fine. It's fine that it happened now. And it's not clear to me why. But I believe as I grow and research and find myself, and as I learn from others, and as I continue to teach as well, that which I've learned, that reason will be revealed to me, and it will make so much sense at that time. So the learning continues.
What advice would you give to other people who might be on a similar journey?
Get the therapy. I want to say, really question yourself, but some people don't know how to. So I feel like the therapy really does help in that regard. So get the therapy. And there's a part of me that actually doesn't even like the therapy part of this transition process, because I feel like I know who I am. Why do I need some other person to come tell me? This is yet another obstacle that the heteronormative world have imposed upon transgender women. There's a little activist voice in me that says this is a cause I must fight in the future. But I also do understand the value to why they need to, especially if you're going to do it the free way, the government hospital way. If you're going to be using government property and resources, they need to make sure that you are not going to 4 months down the line change your mind and say, I want my penis back, So I understand the value to why you have to be psychologically analyzed. So that is my first piece of practical advice is make an appointment with a psychologist, have them assess you and diagnose you with this and take it from there. From a personal journey perspective, my first piece of advice is love yourself no matter what. Whether you think you're trans and then find out that you weren't, or find out that you are, in any stage of your self-diagnosing, and in any stage of your questioning yourself, in every stage, in fact, of your self-discovery, love yourself. Love everything about yourself, even the parts of you that aren't pretty. In fact, maybe those are the parts that need the most loving. Love yourself. That is at least something you can do. I'm thinking of someone who perhaps lives in a rural area where they may not have access to a psychologist, or and again, that's another privilege of mine, to be living in an urban area that is where I'm surrounded by medical professionals within a 3-kilometer radius. I think I have about 20 just sitting here at Gay Radio. There's already so many that I have access to. Whereas somebody in the Transkei, in Kudu, or somebody who'll be listening from Bangladesh, because we're an international radio station, or someone who'll be listening from Accra in Ghana.
Or near Groblersdal.
Or near Groblersdal, near by Duffelkorp, and they may not have the insurmountable wealth of knowledge and access to medical professionals that I enjoy. And for those people, I really do recommend that you make contact with one. While you are waiting, while you are planning, while you are plotting, love yourself. We get so caught up in the rat race of life, trying to make money, trying to get success, trying to be on the same par as our peers, to drive flashy cars and to live in certain addresses which symbolize success. And in all of those things that we do, we forget. It's so easy to get lost in it and to lose ourselves and to forget to love ourselves. And it's something that I forget too, and I forget, and I'll see it in my health deteriorating, or I'll just see it, and it'll surface in one way or another, or I'll just start being very forgetful at work and or slipping. And I have to remind myself to love myself, and I have to almost sit and look in the mirror and just to love myself and to say, who are you again? Why are you doing this again? I ask myself these questions, and I don't always come up with the same answer, by the way. But the consistent thing is I've never changed my mind about wanting to do the surgery and wanting and being who I am and transitioning and living my truth. That I've never deviated from. I'll have a variety of answers, but they'll always be around the same theme. So that's what I'd like to say to every transgender boy and girl, especially those who are still considering doing the surgery. See a professional. That is the first step. Help is available and it's free. And, for somebody who lives far from an urban city, it might not be that free because you might have to spend a lot of money on transport. But if it means enough to you, you'll make a plan. What do they say? A Buddha make a plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a saying.
Farmer makes a plan.
Yes, my grandfather used to love that saying. But yeah, when you are determined and your resolve, and it means that much to you, you will get it done. And see a professional and take it from there. I wish somebody had told me this years ago. When Leo said it to me, it was like a light bulb moment. I saw angels and I just thought, why did I not know this? But better late than never.
Anything else that you want to talk about that I didn't ask?
No, I think we covered everything, actually. We covered everything. And thank you, actually. You made me so comfortable. I was a bit skeptical because I was, after thought, is this going to be uncomfortable? But you were great.
Thank you.
You were great. You were great. And I look forward to listening to this series. And I hope my story inspires others. And like I said, I am not perfect. I have so much to learn. I make mistakes. I fall. I cry. But I also get up. And I still have a lot of joyous moments. And I laugh. And I try to be a breath of fresh air in every space I occupy. I try to bring love and light.
Okay, so ready we are, family. I am Rian, and that was the lovely Ditshego Ditshego talking to us about her trans journey.